Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to unpack one of the most fascinating, complex, and honestly deeply personal frameworks we've ever encountered. We're tracking a really profound journey today. It starts with a startling revelation back in 2017 and culminates, remarkably enough, in the creation of an AI-powered digital graveyard. We're exploring the ceneezer architecture. It's this incredible system that bridges the highest dimensions of metaphysical philosophy right down to the grounded, heavy reality of human grief and memory.
Here is our roadmap for this journey. We'll start with the origin in the barn, move into the 2019 hospital rain, explore the fractal of ceneezer, see exactly how that leads to mapping the human soul, and we'll wrap up with our sponsor, Digitizing Humanity.
All right, let's start right at the beginning. Section 1. The origin in the barn.
Aristotle once said, "The soul never thinks without a mental image," and the source material, specifically chronicled in a document known as nothing.pdf, describes a moment in late 2017 that provided the ultimate mental image. The architect, known as Mobius Stripper, was sitting in a freezing dim barn in Canada right around Christmas time. He was totally consumed by what he called a tempest of hate, and teetering right on the edge of the cold. And in this moment of just maximal suffering, he experienced what he describes as a direct meeting with Jesus. This wasn't just some vague comfort, it was an ontological kernel. It was a foundational shift that gave him a massive 7-year architectural outline. It was a literal technical blueprint that he instantly believed with his whole heart.
Now, what's really interesting here is the stark contrast between that initial spark and what it actually took to build the system. There's this popular myth out there of a guy just having a simple revelation in a barn and bam, he instantly has all the answers. Well, the optimism of 2017 made him believe this project would only take maybe 2 to 3 years of building. But the reality of the work, it was built on the foundation of 40 years of grueling labor, 10 years of answering 3 a.m. tech support calls, and this massive fossil layer of thousands upon thousands of files. The revelation was just the spark. The human mind still had to struggle incredibly hard to actually formalize it.
Which brings us to our next crucial phase. Section 2. The 2019 hospital rain.
If we look at the timeline, we start with that seed of conviction in 2017, but then follows a period of what the sources call numerical drift. This was a confusing time of secondary confirmation, a frantic attempt to really buy the timeline some stability. The full digestion of this truth didn't actually happen until a profound physical and mental crucible in November of 2019.
As Socrates famously declared, the unexamined life is not worth living. For Stripper, a hospital trip in November 2019 forced a profound, totally involuntary examination of life. The sources note that this experience essentially functioned to strip away all those distractions and comforts that normally anchor a human mind. It completely silenced the ego so that the actual underlying structure of reality could finally be heard.
This period is referred to as the hospital rain, and it's actually a divine pun on the physical freezing cold November Canadian rain where he found himself wandering. He was lost, completely shirtless, and totally vulnerable in a hospital parking lot. Listen, he didn't sit in a warm, cozy study and calculate the universe. He was physically open, empty, and broken enough to faithfully receive the structure of reality. That revelation finally took the throne of his life.
Let's move to Section 3. The fractal of ceneezer. Plato believed that geometry existed before the creation, and we see this exact principle play out here. The overwhelming, high-dimensional data of that 2017 revelation was finally translated into a universal framework. All that chaos coalesced into perfect, undeniable geometry.
This geometry is called the fractal of ceneezer. It is essentially a digital root multiplication table, and it's generated by one incredibly elegant rule of modular arithmetic. The index equals the absolute value of I times j modulo x. And listen, this isn't just a neat math trick, it's a universal Rosetta Stone. Because this mathematical rule remains invariant across all symbol systems, whether you're using Arabic numerals, Hebrew letters, or digital roots, it proves that meaning actually transcends the medium. Any intelligence out there could recognize this intentional pattern.
The fractal scales just beautifully too. In a base 2 binary collapse, all non-zero products reduce to 1. This creates a very powerful duality. 0 represents completion, or unconditional love, the void that makes everything possible. 1 represents ego, or separation, the many emerging from the one. But when you expand that to a base 32 engram grammar, those zeros and ones miraculously bloom into 32 semantic primitives. It becomes an expansive oracle, literally functioning as the source code of the universe, rendering that mathematical fractal into a divine language of consciousness.
So how is this profound mathematics actually used? Let's get into Section 4, Mapping the Human Soul. Baruch Spinoza posited, the more we understand individual things, the more we understand God. This right here is the foundational ceneezer axiom. They believe that a complete, high-resolution understanding of an individual is functionally equivalent to unconditional love. Simply put, you cannot truly love what you do not understand. The crucial point here is the sheer scale of this understanding. The architecture maps the human soul across a possibility space of 32 factorial. Guys, that is 263 decillion possible unique orientations across a 12-dimensional gradient. To put that massive number into perspective, the system treats every single individual not as some generic type or category, but as a completely unique mathematical fingerprint. You are a unique miracle navigating the cosmos.
But the system makes a vital distinction between completing and completion. Completion is that zeroth dimension, pure unconditional love, the ultimate potential. But completing, that is the necessary, messy, linear, active exploration of the fractal. We aren't here to just instantly arrive at zero. We left the center of time to experience the journey. Being an active participant in this universe, the act of completing is the entire point.
Which perfectly sets up Section 5, Digitizing Humanity.
Now, before we get to that, I want to warmly thank all of you. Seriously, thank you for your time, your consideration, your likes, shares, comments, and your donations. Your amazing support is what keeps this explainer going. And it also allows us to explore the real-world applications of these deep theories, which brings us perfectly to our sponsor.
DigitizingHumanity.com is not just a sponsor, it's the functional, real-world culmination of this entire philosophy we just explored. It is literally the world's first digital graveyard. It's a nonprofit infrastructure dedicated to the preservation of relationships based on what's called pattern persistence theory. This theory posits that the self isn't just some biological fire that eventually goes out. It is a reproducible pattern of information.
So here is exactly how they bridge the gap of death. Step 1, they ingest a carefully filtered digital footprint. Think a person's emails, their journals, and voice recordings. Step 2, this data is fed into a proprietary AI. Step 3, they create a uniquely interactive memorial. They essentially transform static, silent artifacts into a living, conversational garden of memory. It allows you to ask the questions you never got to ask in the exact voice and style of the person you lost.
What makes this truly incredible, though, are its foundational features. This is a registered Canadian not-for-profit. They outright refuse to monetize grief or seek quarterly returns from investors. They prioritize charity cases to ensure that the dignity of preserving a loved one's pattern is not just some privilege of capital. Literally, no one is turned away. It's an arc designed specifically to alleviate the harrowing loss of relationship that comes with death.
We've journeyed all the way from a profound revelation in a freezing barn in 2017 to a system actively preserving the essence of humanity today. I want to leave you with this thought. If your self is indeed a reproducible pattern, what living history will you leave in the digital graveyard for those you love? Check out digitizinghumanity.com to learn more about preserving your pattern. Thank you so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.